The hammering in my chest was so violent I was certain it would fracture my ribs. The door to the master suite didn't just open, it exploded inward, as if kicked, but the silhouette that filled the doorway wasn't the familiar, comforting frame of my new husband. This was a stranger, a monochrome cutout of a man dressed in matte black from his knit cap to his tactical boots. He didn't glance around. He moved with a predator's directness, his strides eating up the plush carpet as he beelined for the walk-in closet where I was concealed. My blood turned to ice. He yanked the doors wide and a pair of eyes, the colour of dark slate and just as hard, locked onto mine. He didn't smile. He leaned in, and his whisper was like dry leaves scraping concrete. You have a choice. Scream right now, bring him running, and die the slow, agonizing death your husband has written for you. Or, he paused, letting the silence scream, shut your mouth, wipe your face, and join my game to annihilate him. I, Aaliyah Carter, had dreamed of my wedding night since I was a girl. Never once did the fantasy end with a phantom in black offering me a pact of vengeance. The bitter irony was a taste of copper on my tongue. Before we go further, I want to know, where in the world are you hearing this? Drop your city in the comments. And if you want this channel to survive, to keep bringing you stories that twist your soul, hit like and subscribe. What you can't possibly grasp is that behind this simple request lies the first night of Aaliyah's personal damnation. The wedding had been a masterpiece of opulence and exhaustion. The grand atrium of the Evergreen, a hotel that scraped the Atlanta sky, had hours earlier been a riot of colour, music, and deafening celebration. My mother's side of the family, a vibrant tapestry from Charleston, had danced alongside my father's more reserved, professional colleagues. The air had been thick with the scent of gardenias, expensive perfume, and promise. Now, in the silence of the presidential suite, the only remnants were the ghostly echoes of that joy. I stood before a gilded mirror, still encased in the architectural wonder of my wedding gown, ivory silk with a corseted bodice embroidered with tiny, iridescent beads that caught the low light like scattered stars. My veil, a cloud of French illusion tulle, lay pooled at my feet. I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to quell the nervous fluttering in my stomach that I'd mistaken for bliss. This was it. The day. I was now Mrs. Aaliyah Pierce, wife of Julian Pierce, the man who had appeared like a steady port in the hurricane that followed my parents' deaths 2 years prior. In the wake of losing my father, Robert Carter, to a sudden cardiac event, and my mother, Vivian, to a grief she simply could not survive, Julian had been my anchor. He'd helped me navigate the terrifying waters of assuming control of Carter Global Logistics, a multi-million-dollar empire built from my father's sweat and brilliance. My fingers found the heavy vintage diamond band on my left hand, Julian's great-grandmother's ring. He'd presented it with tears in his eyes, speaking of legacy and forever. He was everything a woman like me, a young black heiress with a target on her back, was supposed to want. Impeccably dressed, a deacon at his family's church, philanthropic, shrewd in business, the perfect partner to share a life and secure a dynasty. In that moment, surrounded by dying roses and flickering candlelight, I felt like I had not just found love, but won a crucial battle for stability. I let my gaze wander the suite. Petals of deep burgundy roses were strewn across the duvet. Dozens of pillar candles cast dancing shadows on the walls. It was a scene from a luxury magazine. Then, a whimsical, girlish thought struck me. Julian was downstairs seeing off the last of our out-of-town relatives who'd been hosted in the hotel. He thought I was waiting, a blushing bride. A slow smile touched my lips. I wanted to surprise him. I wanted him to enter, find the room empty, a moment of confusion crossing his handsome face before I revealed myself. The game of it sent a thrill through me. Gathering the immense skirt of my dress, I padded on bare feet to the enormous custom-made closet. It was a room in itself, lined with cedar and illuminated by soft LED strips. I slipped inside, the scent of wood and fine wool enveloping me. I maneuvered past a row of Julian's bespoke suits and my own hanging gowns, finding a deep recess near the back where seasonal storage boxes were kept. I carefully lowered myself, arranging the silk around me, and pulled the double doors until only the slimmest crack remained. In the darkness, my heart beat a joyful, anticipatory rhythm. I imagined his call. "Aaliyah! Sweetheart!" I pictured myself leaping out, wrapping my arms around him from behind, feeling him jump then laugh. I held my breath, every sense tuned to the world beyond the doors. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then, the definitive click-whir of the electronic lock disengaging. The soft thud of the door pushing against the plush carpet. Footsteps, not Julian's familiar measured pace. These were heavier, more purposeful. A chill, unrelated to the closet's cool air, prickled the back of my neck. Through the crack, I saw him. It wasn't Julian. The man who had entered was a study in shadow, black tactical pants, a black long-sleeved compression shirt, stretched across a powerful chest, black gloves. His face was obscured by the low brim of his cap and the high collar of his shirt. He moved with a lethal, efficient grace, scanning the room not like a thief looking for valuables, but like a soldier assessing a battlefield. My hand flew to my mouth. God, please let him just take the jewelry box and go. I pressed myself deeper into the corner, praying the boxes would swallow me. My hopes evaporated in an instant. He didn't look at the dresser or the safe. He turned, calmly slid the security chain into place with a soft snick, and then, as if guided by a homing beacon, began walking directly toward the closet. His eyes seemed to pierce the polished wood, seeing straight through to where I trembled. A whimper died in my throat. When his gloved hand seized the door handle and flung the doors open on silent hinges, I recoiled, my back hitting the solid wall. I opened my mouth to scream. A single raised finger. The command was absolute. In the dim light bleeding from the bedroom, I saw his face more clearly. He was a black man, maybe in his late 30s, with skin the rich, deep brown of mahogany. His features were sharp, severe, a blade of a nose, a strong jaw shadowed with stubble, a thin, pale scar traced from the corner of his left eye back into his hairline. His name, I would learn, was Gideon. He held no gun, no knife, only a sleek, black smartphone. His gaze wasn't cruel or lecherous, it was intensely, frighteningly focused. Without uttering a syllable, he tapped the phone's screen and thrust it toward me. A voice recording began to play, volume maxed. The voice was so intimate, so horribly familiar, it felt like a violation. Julian's voice. But not the Julian I knew. This voice was relaxed, cynical, laced with a malice that made my stomach heave. And finally signed the papers on that Carter legacy tonight. Man, 2 years of playing the fucking saint. 2 years of nodding in church, holding her hand while she cried over her daddy's old photos. I deserve an Oscar. A low, feminine laugh bubbled in the background. Sienna, the woman he introduced as his cousin, a shy art student he was mentoring. Her voice in the recording was anything but shy. Patience, baby. The final act is just starting. Is the plan still the same? Julian's voice, cold and clinical. 3 months. We use her mother's history, the delicate constitution, the depression. We start small. The pills I got will mimic anxiety, paranoia. She'll start seeing things, forgetting things. We get the sympathetic family doctor on board, then a psychiatrist. We have her declared non-compos mentis. I get power of attorney over Carter Global, the estate, everything. We bleed the accounts dry, file for divorce citing her instability, and have her tucked away in some nice quiet facility upstate. Then, my love, it's first class to Bali for the rest of our lives. The recording continued, detailing specific drugs, methods, names of corrupt professionals. It spoke of my mother's memory with a disgusting, casual contempt. It reduced my father's life's work, to a piggy bank. It reduced me to an obstacle to be chemically dismantled. The world didn't just tilt, it shattered. The air vanished from the closet. My legs dissolved, and I slid down the wall, a heap of silk and despair. The pain was physical, a white-hot blade twisting in my core. Julian, my husband, my protector, a monster. Sienna, the girl I'd bought art supplies for, taken to lunch, a viper in my bosom. The entire foundation of my last 2 years, the love, the support, the future, was revealed as a grotesque, elaborate set piece. Gideon stopped the audio. He crouched, bringing himself to my eye level. He didn't touch me. His gaze was unflinching. Outside the door, a new sound, a light whistling tune. Julian's whistle. Keys jingling. The door handle rattled, then stopped against the chain. Aaliyah? Honey, you okay? Why's the chain on? Julian's voice dripping with concerned affection. The sound that had once been a balm was now the hiss of a cobra. Gideon's whisper was barely a breath. Listen carefully. You have 2 options. Option 1, you scream right now. You throw open that door, you accuse him, you play the hysterical bride. He will be shocked for 3 seconds. Then he will pivot. He'll hold you, soothe you, tell everyone you're overwhelmed, that the stress of the wedding and your parents' passing has triggered a latent breakdown. The recording? He'll say it's a fake, a cruel joke, that you're confused. And his plan, the one you just heard, begins tonight. It will be a slow, psychological death. They will bury you alive in your own mind. He paused as Julian called again, a hint of impatience now colouring his tone. Aaliyah, baby, open up. You're making me worry. Option 2, Gideon continued, his eyes holding mine captive. You get up. You silence those sobs. You walk out of this closet, and you become the greatest actress of your life. You be the sweet, dazed, loving bride he expects to find. You let him believe his game is won. But you play by my rules now. We gather evidence. We dismantle him piece by piece. We make him lose everything, his freedom, his money, his reputation, with the same calculated cruelty he intended for you. Choose, Aaliyah. Scream, and you lose everything. Stay silent, and we make him pay. I looked at him, my vision blurred by tears of utter devastation. But within that wreckage, something new was born. A spark, a hard, hot coal of rage. I thought of my father's calloused hands building his company from a single truck. I thought of my mother's brilliant smile, erased by sadness. I would not let this parasite desecrate their memory. I would not be their victim. I swallowed the sob clawing at my throat. With a force of will I didn't know I possessed, I gave a sharp, decisive nod. A flicker of something respect passed through Gideon's steely eyes. He gestured sharply toward the ensuite bathroom. As I scrambled up, my dress tangling around my legs, he moved like smoke toward the floor-to-ceiling windows that led to a private terrace, slipping behind the heavy drapes. In the bathroom, I turned the gold faucets on full blast. The roaring water covered the sound of my retching as dry heaves racked my body. I splashed icy water on my face again and again, the shock pulling me back from the edge of panic. I stared at the stranger in the mirror, smudged mascara, red-rimmed eyes, a face pale with shock. No. I rummaged in my bag for concealer, foundation, a touch of lip gloss. I rebuilt the mask layer by layer. For Daddy, for Mama, I whispered to my reflection, my voice gaining strength. You will not break me. I turned off the water. The sudden silence was deafening. I walked to the main door, my hand steady as I slid the chain free and opened it. Julian stood there, the picture of handsome concern. There you are. What was with the fortress routine? He asked, stepping in and pulling me into a hug. His arms around me felt like bands of iron. The smell of his citrus and sandalwood cologne, which I'd once found irresistible, now made my gorge rise. I let my arms hang limply at my sides, unable to reciprocate. Sorry, I murmured into his shoulder, my voice purposefully thick. I just needed a minute. It's all so much. He pulled back, cupping my face. My sensitive girl. It's over now, just you and me. He kissed my forehead. You're trembling. You cold? The AC is Arctic in here, I lied, forcing a small smile and extracting myself under the guise of getting a glass of water. He nodded, already unknotting his tie. I'm going to get out of this monkey suit. Be right back. He headed for the closet, and my heart seized. But he simply opened the doors, rummaged for a cotton shirt and began to change, his back to me. There was no sign of Gideon. As I pretended to sip water, my eyes fell on the nightstand. Julian's phone lit up with a new message. The contact name, Sienna, cousin. The preview text was unmistakable. The stage is yours tonight, my king. Don't forget her vitamins. You've got a performance to maintain. Love you to the moon, followed by a string of heart and fire emojis. The visual confirmation was a physical blow. I gripped the edge of the dresser, my knuckles white. The rage threatened to erupt, a geyser of pure hate. But Gideon's words echoed, "Stay silent, and we make him pay." Julian turned, pulling on his shirt. He saw me looking at the phone and a micro-expression of alarm flashed before being smoothed over. Everything okay? Your phone buzzed. Probably just the family group blowing up again, I said, my voice miraculously even. He scooped it up, glanced at the screen, and a tiny, smug smile touched his lips before he locked it and shoved it in his pocket. Yeah, they won't quit. Everyone's so happy for us. He came over, sitting on the sofa and pulling me down beside him, his arm a heavy weight across my shoulders. So, my beautiful wife, our honeymoon in Mauritius. I was thinking. The night became an exquisite torture. He spoke of our future, of children, of expanding Carter Global together. Every endearment, my queen, my heart, my everything, was a drop of acid on my soul. I pleaded a sudden, debilitating menstrual cramp and profound exhaustion to avoid consummating the marriage. He feigned understanding, the perfect gentleman. We have a lifetime, my love. Rest. I'll be right here. When his breathing finally deepened into sleep, I lay rigid beside him, staring at the ornate ceiling, tears of fury and betrayal leaking silently onto the satin pillowcase. I carefully rolled away, and my hand slid between the mattress and box spring near the headboard. My fingers brushed against a small, rigid rectangle. Gideon's card. I pulled it out. It was simple, elegant, and ominous. Gideon Vale. Strategic Resolutions. A phone number. Nothing more. In the cold blue light of dawn, while Julian snored softly, I locked myself in the bathroom. I looked at the card, then at my face in the mirror. The girl who loved Julian Pierce was gone, murdered by his own words. The woman who stared back had eyes of flint. I took my personal phone, the one Julian didn't monitor, and typed a message to the number. It's Aaliyah. I'm in. Teach me how to burn their world to the ground. I want them to feel everything I'm feeling now. I hit send, then permanently deleted the thread. I walked out, my head high. The war was declared. A week later, the public facade was pristine. Social media glowed with pictures of the happy couple. The reality inside our Buckhead mansion was a chilling pantomime. I had become a consummate performer. Each morning I smiled at the man I fantasized about strangling. I let him kiss my cheek, call me his precious girl, all while nurturing a cold, focused hatred that fueled my every move. One morning, over a breakfast of avocado toast and fresh juice, Julian watched me poke at my food. You're not eating again, sweetheart. Is it the company stress? The board meeting next week? He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. I had to consciously stop myself from jerking away. I have these constant headaches, and I'm so tired, Julian. The paperwork from Daddy's estate, the legalities, it feels like it's swallowing me. I let my voice waver, injecting just the right note of helplessness. His eyes softened with faux sympathy. Aaliyah, you have to listen to me. Your health is paramount. Remember what happened to your mother? It started with stress, with headaches. I won't let you go down that path. He wielded my mother's memory like a scalpel, using my love for her to probe my vulnerabilities. The audacity stole my breath. I lowered my gaze, a perfect picture of scared vulnerability. You're right. I'm scared of becoming like her. He squeezed my hand. I'm here. I'll protect you. My next move was to ask for a self-care day, a trip to a high-end spa. Julian approved eagerly, seeing it as a step toward the frivolous, distracted woman he needed me to become. Instead, after a complex route involving 2 Ubers and a decoy stop, I arrived at a quiet, book-lined tea shop in Decatur. Gideon was already in a back booth, looking like a professor in a tweed blazer and glasses. He slid a thick dossier across the table. Deeper due diligence. You asked about your father's accident. His voice was low. The official report said mechanical failure on the private elevator at his office penthouse. It never sat right with me. I opened the folder. Photos of the elevator shaft, maintenance logs. Then, bank statements. Gideon's finger pointed to a series of transactions. 6 weeks before your father died, Julian, under the alias J. Preston, made a $75,000 wire transfer to a man named Leon Fingers Dawkins. Dawkins was a freelance elevator technician with a rap sheet for fraud and a gambling habit. At the same time, Julian's secret offshore account showed a massive incoming transfer from a Cayman shell company just days after a key life insurance policy on your father, naming you and subsequently him as beneficiary, was finalized. The pieces clicked together with a sound that echoed in my soul. He had my father's elevator rigged. The words were barely a whisper. Gideon nodded once, his expression grim. Your father refused to give him an early loan against your inheritance to cover his debts from high-stakes poker games and bad commodity bets. Julian was being pressured by some very dangerous people. Removing your father accelerated his access to the Carter fortune exponentially. He's not just a con man, Aaliyah. He's a murderer. A white-hot fury, purer and more terrible than any grief, erupted within me. I will kill him, I hissed, my hands shaking. I will watch the life leave his eyes. No, Gideon said, his voice cutting through my rage. You kill him, you go to prison. Sienna plays the grieving cousin, inherits whatever's left. There is a fate far worse than a quick death. We let the justice system bury him. We take his money, his name, his liberty. We let him rot in a cell, forgotten. That is the sentence. The cold logic of it doused the wildfire of my anger, leaving a bed of glowing, determined coals. He was right. Death was a mercy. I wanted him to live in a hell of his own making. How do we start? That very evening, fate intervened. I returned home to find Julian in the sunroom with Sienna. Seeing her perched on my mother's antique chaise lounge, sipping my grandmother's crystal, was a fresh wave of nausea. Julian sprang up, all smiles. Aaliyah, look who's in a bind. Sienna's building has massive water damage, total nightmare. She's got nowhere to go for a few weeks. I told her our home is her home. We've got plenty of space. Sienna stood, her face a mask of apologetic innocence. She wore a simple linen dress, her hair in soft curls. Oh, Aaliyah, I'm so sorry to impose. You've both been so kind to me. I feel awful. I beamed, crossing the room to take her hands. Nonsense! Family doesn't impose. You'll stay as long as you need. It'll be wonderful to have another woman in the house. I saw the glance they exchanged, triumphant, condescending. They saw my kindness as stupidity. Little did they know, having the snake in my nest was a tactical advantage. That night, while they shared a nightcap on the terrace, I became a ghost in my own home. From my purse, I retrieved the tiny wireless cameras Gideon had provided, no bigger than shirt buttons. With practiced ease, I placed one behind a framed Ansel Adams print in the living room, another in a bookshelf facing the study desk, a third nestled in the dried floral arrangement on the kitchen island. They linked to a secure tablet hidden in a false panel in my walk-in closet. Later, alone, I powered on the tablet. The kitchen feed showed in perfect clarity. Julian, alone, was preparing my nightly calming tea, a special blend from his herbalist. I watched, my blood running cold, as he glanced over his shoulder, pulled a small vial from his pocket, and tapped a fine powder into the steaming mug meant for me. He stirred it diligently, his face a mask of concentration, not care. I saved the clip. Evidence. Step 1. Brew your poison, Julian, I whispered to the screen, but your cup will never reach my lips. The next morning he was the doting husband, bringing me breakfast in bed. My love, your special tea. Doctor's orders, to keep the anxiety at bay, to protect that beautiful mind. He kissed my hair. I can't lose you to shadows like your mother. The manipulation was breathtaking. I took the cup, letting my hands tremble slightly. You're so good to me. I lifted it, pretended to sip, then gasped. Oh, it's so hot. I fanned my mouth. As he turned, distracted by his phone buzzing on the dresser, I pivoted and poured 90% of the liquid into the large, thirsty soil of a fiddle-leaf fig tree in a corner. When he turned back, I brought the empty cup to my lips for a final sip. It's quite bitter, I said, making a face. The most potent remedies often are, my heart. You'll get used to it. His relief at seeing the empty cup was palpable. Now, rest up. Big donor luncheon today for the Carter Foundation. You need to shine. He was counting on the drugs to make me falter in public. I decided to give him a performance, but on my terms. Thus began my carefully choreographed descent. I forgot Sienna's name, calling her Sarah. I misplaced my car keys in the refrigerator. During a formal dinner with a potential business partner, I suddenly dropped my fork, staring wide-eyed at a corner, whispering, "Did you see that? The shadow. It moved." I let genuine tears, born of frustration and fury, flow freely. Julian and Sienna would rush to my side, a perfect picture of concern, whispering soothing nothings. The moment my back was turned, the hidden cameras caught their quick, satisfied smirks, their silent high fives. "It's working faster than we hoped," Julian murmured to Sienna one night, unaware the air vent above them held a listening device. "Another few weeks, and we can move to the competency hearing." Parallel to this charade, the real attack was underway. Gideon had unearthed Sienna's safety net, a modest condo in Midtown, held in a shell company's name. Inside, a wall safe held the tangible proof of their duplicity. One afternoon with Julian at a charity golf tournament, a meeting arranged by Gideon to occupy him, and Sienna at a yoga retreat, a spa gift from me to get her out of the house, I made my move. Dressed in dark jeans, a hoodie, and a baseball cap, I was a different person. A nondescript sedan, driven by a Gideon associate, dropped me blocks away. Using a cloned key fob, I entered her building. The condo was sterile, unlived in. I went straight to the bedroom, found the safe behind a cheap landscape painting, and used a digital decoder. The lock clicked open. Inside, bundles of euros, a velvet pouch of unset diamonds, and a document folder. My hands trembled as I opened it. 2 passports, one for Julian under the name Julian Price, one for Sienna as Cassandra Vale. And there, at the bottom, a certificate of Holy Union from a tiny, obscure church in Nevada, dated over 3 years ago. Julian and Sienna were already married in the eyes of their God long before he ever knelt before me. I photographed everything, then took the originals. As I turned to leave, I heard the key in the front door lock. My blood froze. Sienna's voice irritated on the phone. "Stupid retreat was fully booked. Can you believe it? I'm just grabbing a few things from the old place." I had seconds. I closed the safe, shoved the folder into my backpack, and dove into the closet, burying myself behind winter coats. The bedroom door opened. Sienna's footsteps approached. I held my breath, my hand closing around a small canister of pepper gel in my pocket. She was at the closet, her hand on the knob. "Now where is that little black dress?" she muttered. Just as the door began to swing open, a deafening, pulsating alarm blared through the entire building. A robotic voice intoned, "Fire alert! Please evacuate immediately! Fire alert!" Gideon's remote trigger. Sienna cursed, snatched her hand back and ran for the exit, forgetting her mission. I waited for the sound of the front door slamming, then emerged, melting into the stream of evacuating residents, just another panicked face. In the getaway car, Gideon took the backpack. He flipped through the documents, a slow smile spreading. A secret wedding. Fraud from the outset. This is not just evidence, Aaliyah. This is a wrecking ball. We could end them tomorrow, but first we follow your plan. We bankrupt the arrogance out of him. The financial dismantling was a thing of beauty. With the help of my father's ancient loyal accountant, Mr. Higgins, I began to quietly liquidate non-essential, liquid assets. A stock portfolio here, a bond holding there, moving them into new secure trusts Julian knew nothing about. To trap Julian, we exploited his insatiable greed. Gideon created a phantom investment opportunity, a proposed luxury eco-resort on sovereign land in the Caribbean, with forged geological surveys and endorsements from fake dignitaries. The promised returns were astronomical. Julian bit hard. He came home one night with a prospectus, eyes glittering. "Aaliyah, this is it. The deal of a lifetime. We commit Carter Capital as the anchor investor, and we triple our money in 8 months. It will secure our legacy forever. I just need your signature as CEO to authorize the initial transfer." I let my hands shake as I held the pen. "It sounds risky, Julian. Are you sure?" "Trust me," he said, his voice velvety. "Have I ever steered you wrong?" I signed with a deliberately slightly shaky version of my signature, a detail to contest later if needed. He didn't notice, too busy envisioning his fortune. Next, I turned my attention to the crack between our conspirators. I began a subtle campaign of psychological warfare. One afternoon, while Sienna sketched in the garden, I sat nearby, seeming lost in thought. "Sienna?" I said softly. Julian talks in his sleep sometimes. Last night, it was so strange. He said, 'When the Carter money is mine, I'll have to deal with Sienna. She's a loose end, too emotional. Tahiti is for 2, not 3. "Do you know anyone in Tahiti?" The colour drained from her face. Tahiti was where Julian had once taken a former girlfriend, a fact I'd accidentally discovered in an old email. "You must have misheard," she said stiffly. "He sleeps like the dead." "You're probably right," I sighed. "My mind plays such awful tricks on me lately." That night, the hidden microphone in the guest room picked up a vicious argument. Sienna accused him of planning to abandon her. Julian called her a paranoid, greedy fool. The seed of distrust was now a thorny vine. The finale of my breakdown was triggered by Julian's impatience. He staged a scene, shattering a vase that belonged to my mother and blaming me for it in a psychotic rage. I performed my magnum opus, collapsing to the floor, wailing, clawing at my own arms, speaking in gibberish to my mother's ghost. The household staff looked on in horror. Julian made a show of calling his lawyer and his prearranged, corrupt psychiatrist, Dr. Arkwright. "She's a danger. We need an emergency evaluation for guardianship." What he didn't know was that Gideon had intercepted the call. While Dr. Arkwright found his car mysteriously disabled, another psychiatrist arrived at our door. Dr. Eleanor Vance, a renowned specialist from Emory University, accompanied by 2 official-looking assistants. Julian was flustered but confident my medicated state would convince anyone. The evaluation proceeded in the library. I sat, looking frail and disoriented. Julian and his lawyer hovered. Dr. Vance began with simple questions. I blinked slowly, then focused. I answered with crisp, articulate precision. I recited the date, the names of recent world leaders, solved complex logic puzzles. I gave a coherent, detailed account of the past week, including Julian's suspicious behaviour. Julian's confidence turned to panic. "This is impossible. She's on medication." "What medication precisely, Mr. Pierce?" Dr. Vance asked, her voice icy. Her herbal supplements," he stammered. After a thorough 2-hour assessment, Dr. Vance turned to him. "Mr. Pierce, your wife exhibits no signs of psychosis, delirium, or cognitive impairment. She is, in my professional opinion, entirely sound of mind and fully capable of managing her affairs. I will be filing a report to that effect and alerting the medical board about your Dr. Arkwright." When they left, Julian was ashen. I walked up to him, my posture straight, all pretense gone. "The tea was always for the ficus, Julian. It's looking a little peaked, don't you think? You've been poisoning a houseplant." I smiled. "A cold, terrible thing." "Your game is over. Mine is just beginning." As I spoke, the first police cars arrived to question him about the fraudulent eco-resort investment. The endgame was the Carter Global Annual Gala, an event marking 40 years since my father started the company. The museum atrium was packed with the city's elite. I wore a gown of liquid silver, my head high. Julian, sweating in his tuxedo, stood beside me. After the welcome speeches, I took the podium. "Tonight," I said, my voice clear and carrying, "we celebrate legacy. But a legacy can be usurped by rot. Tonight, we excise that rot." The screens cut from the corporate video to the hidden camera footage. Julian and Sienna laughing over poisoning me, discussing my father's necessary accident. Then, the documents, the fake passports, the secret marriage certificate, the fraudulent transfers. The room erupted. Julian screamed, "Deep fakes," and tried to bolt. Gideon materialized at the side exit, tripping him smoothly into the waiting grasp of uniformed officers. Sienna across the room shrieked and tried to play the victim, but was swiftly apprehended by detectives. The legal process was swift and brutal. The evidence was overwhelming, but the system allowed for bail. A broke, desperate Julian holed up in a motel, stewed in his own venom. He obtained a stolen gun. One rain-lashed night he scaled the estate wall, knowing its old security flaws. He shattered a pantry window. He found me not in my bedroom but in my father's old study going over ledgers. Gideon was a step behind him. A struggle ensued. A shot rang out, grazing Gideon's shoulder. I fled up the main staircase, Julian chasing me wild-eyed to the second-floor landing that overlooked the grand foyer. "It ends tonight! We end together!" he roared, raising the gun. From the floor below, Gideon, bleeding, yelled for me to run. Instead, I remembered the Krav Maga move Gideon had drilled into me. As Julian's finger tightened on the trigger, I lunged not away, but forward, inside his reach, driving the heel of my palm up into his nose with a sickening crunch. He staggered back, howling, his balance lost on the polished marble edge of the landing. He windmilled his arms for a heart-stopping second before plummeting backwards, crashing through a glass-topped table below. He survived, but with a broken spine. As paramedics loaded him onto a stretcher, handcuffed to the rails, I walked over in the pouring rain. I looked down at the broken man who had promised me the world. Slowly, deliberately, I twisted my wedding ring, his grandmother's ring, from my finger. I dropped it onto his chest. "For your commissary fund," I said, my voice flat, "you are a ghost to me now." He could only stare in drugged, pained horror. 6 months later, at the sentencing, Julian was in a wheelchair, Sienna hollow-eyed. The judge handed down consecutive life sentences for murder for hire, fraud, attempted murder, and a litany of other charges. Sienna's last act was to scream curses at Julian as they led her away. Carter Global, under my leadership, not only recovered but thrived, becoming a model of ethical business and community reinvestment. One autumn evening, I stood at my parents' graves. A presence beside me. Gideon, his arm long-healed. He handed me a formal folder. "Case closed. My services are no longer required." I took it. "So this is goodbye." "Not necessarily. I hear Carter Global is looking for a director of corporate intelligence. The job requires a unique skill set and perhaps the occasional security briefing over dinner. A genuine smile, the first that felt entirely my own in years, touched my lips. I think that could be arranged. We stood in comfortable silence as the sun set, not as protector and protected, but as partners who had walked through fire and emerged side by side into the light. The story of the bride in the closet was over. The story of Aaliyah Carter was just beginning. If you've walked this long road with Aaliyah, you understand the depth of her betrayal and the strength of her climb back. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done in her place? Let me know in the comments. Your voice tells me you want more stories like this, and the next journey into the dark and back into the light might be closer than you think.